Greetings and welcome to this edition of
Positronic Hypersonic.
I'm Barry P. Cook, and I'm here to do a recap and review of the latest episode of Monarch Legacy of Monsters. It was called Parallels and Interiors. And as it starts, it's still 2015, and we see a woman in Utah set up in like an empty valley using all kinds of equipment to track or search for something. She does, in fact, detect some readings, and she uses a satellite phone to call them in to Monarch. Meanwhile, our heroes flee from the freeze beast and manage to hide in a sort of ice cave where May gets hurt when her leg falls through the ice floor. In Tokyo, a year before, we see Kentaro discussing an art exhibit he's created with the gallery owner and his mom before meeting May in the street just outside the gallery by accident and taking her for a drink. Back in Alaska, our heroes are walking towards the coast where Shaw expects to find some kind of outpost or town. In the past, May and Kentaro talk over drinks before he takes her to his very messy studio and invites her to his exhibit, at which point they kiss. Back in the frozen tundra, Kentaro splits from everyone to find a settlement he thought he saw from the air, as the others go a different way looking for a settlement. The woman from Utah, meanwhile, tells Monarch about the readings in more detail, and she says they look like the ones that were created when Godzilla attacked San Francisco, and she says they're coming from Alaska. Speaking of Alaska, Kentaro falls in the snow looking for what he saw after seemingly hallucinating hearing voices, while the others find that they've walked in a circle back to the father's tent, which Shaw says might have happened because Titans, like the Freezy monster, can have a weird effect on their environment and make it seem like something other than what it is, which I don't understand, but okay. Back in the past, Kentaro finally goes off to his exhibit by himself, leaving May in his studio after they had got it on, at which point May gets a call from someone who she's not pleased to hear from. Back in the tundra, May is in and out of lucidity as her hyperthermia is taking a toll, despite her being under a blanket in Kate's dad's tent. And she tells Kate to get in touch with her sister if something happens to her and she doesn't make it. Of course, the monster comes back and they have to run back to the ice cave where they'd been before, but they don't get far on their way there before the monster breaks through the surface a bit, and they see it do a weird glowing thing. Colonel Shaw figures out a plan to lure the monster towards a heat source, which is something it always seems to be chasing, so that he, May, and Kate can get away. But May tells Kate that she doesn't think she's going to make it because she's injured, and she wants Kate to leave her behind if need be. Kentaro, meanwhile, still seems to be hallucinating, and this time he sees his father, but his hallucination doesn't see him. He then momentarily hallucinates being back at his gallery, but then finds himself at the location of a seemingly abandoned outpost of some kind. When he goes inside, he hallucinates that he's inside the gallery where his exhibit was and that his dad is there. And he talks to him, but this time the hallucination congratulates him on his exhibit and says that he's proud of him. When the hallucination ends, he finds a working piece of equipment, a radio, that it would seem he was led to by pencil shavings left in the snow and there in the facility by his father, who was always carving pencils and leaving shavings, as we know from prior episode. Back at the tent, a chopper shows up just as the monster attacks again, and General Shaw. Back at the tent, a chopper shows up just as the monster attacks again, and Shaw causes an explosion to get its attention as Kate and May flee towards the chopper. Apparently, Kentaro was able to summon help on the radio, as he's on the chopper as well, and they all, including the Colonel, escaped from the tundra and the monster, although it was a close call. Kentaro says he believes that his father got out as well because he must be the one who fixed the radio, having been there before. Just before the chopper lands and they're greeted by Monarch, the Colonel realizes that May's laptop got frozen when she held it up defensively as the monster was attacking her, and that it can't now be used to look at the files that, I guess, she copied onto it from the tapes that now are at the bottom of the ocean. And that's where the episode ended. So I continue to like this show. I say that every week, but I found this episode to be a little underwhelming. You know, it seems like they dropped a couple more seeds about what happened to the father, you know, and that he might still be alive, but we still don't know. And, you know, we got a lot of backstory of Kentaro, which I guess is cool, but without knowing how that's going to pay off, it kind of came off as a little bit boring. And there was very little of the monster in this episode, and they more run from it than do anything to defeat it, which I think was kind of boring. So I don't know. This episode wasn't great. I thought that the human drama in the first few episodes was interesting, and I suppose they're continuing with that, but it just kind of fell flat this week. It just seemed like an hour of really nothing happening, and that could change. I mean, we could see something down the road that makes that whole bit with Kintaro and the gallery having, worthwhile. We'll have to see. And it turns out, it seems that the sister is the person May has been talking to on the phone these last couple episodes and not having great conversations with. So why is she on the outs with her sister? What's that about? We'll have to see. So, it was an okay episode. There are a lot of shows on TV that are worse. So I'll keep watching it, but I didn't think this episode was anything special. The biggest thing they left out, I think, was anything from the past, like the 50s with Kate's grandmother and Shaw when he was young, and, the young John Goodman character. That's some interesting stuff. I want to see more about that. What happened with Monarch in the early days. But they left that out. So I don't know. Not the best episode so far. But I'm going to keep watching. And while I'm going to get out of here for now, I'll be back to do a recap and review of the next episode once it's released. Until I return, I wish you peace and long life.